and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we talk all things estate agency. My name is David Warburton. As ever, I'm joined by my colleagues, Ian Storey and James Kendall. Lads, how the hell has your week been? JK.
Another week where resilience has been key. We haven't had a great July, but I was just saying to you lads off air, compared to, we did 6 sales in July, full disclosure. And looking at, where we were as a business, maybe, 7-8 years ago, 6 sales probably would have been 15 grand's worth of fees max. Whereas now, 6 sales still means that we're doing the best part of 60 grand. So, whilst it doesn't sound great, bigger picture thinking, it's not bad. But yeah, we've had to be really resilient. We've had some real challenges with sales progression. We lost quite a lot out of the pipeline in the last 4 weeks. But as I said, I had a good conversation with Rich the other day. We had one right on the edge of literally collapsing of basically the best part of a 50 grand deal with a couple of sales in. And I said, look, what we need to do is let's think about this. We sold this house last time at 1.35. Rather than keeping it on at 1.6, let's go to offers over 1.25. Let's get some back-to-back viewings in, and let's just give it a real good go. Buy ourselves a week before we mention anything to anyone. Buy ourselves a week. Anyway, we've got 4 back-to-back viewings with proceedable people, and one person's basically offered already over the phone. So, it looks like we could turn that around quite quickly. And I think sometimes, we can all be guilty of letting life happen to us and going, oh, well, this hasn't gone my way, and this is going to fall flat and this isn't going to work. Well, sometimes you've got to think, a bit like a special agent, when you're in the room and, you survive or die or survive. And if you just let it happen to you and you die, well, then you've got only yourself to blame. Whereas if you look outside of the box, there's always a way, always a way. So we found a way, and yeah, hopefully that's going back together. One thing we're going to talk about as well in this week's pod anyway, but we're picking up a lot of stock off other agents at the moment where people aren't communicating. We sent our latest on market TCA letter out. We've had 2 responses from that already, and one signed up yesterday and one I'm going to today. Both really good. Both, the one that's signed up already, nice upfront fee, 13.5 grand, 25 grand price reduction, and it's just really easy, just having conversations with people and educating them on the market. Because they said, I said, well, look, obviously your agent's educating you on what's happening out there and why you're not getting viewings, and obviously I know they're not. And they said no, and anyway, we'll talk about this on the pod. But bottom line is, listing's really healthy. Nearly £250,000 worth of listing fees in the last 6 weeks on the board, which is really good, really healthy. Sales progression's a challenge, but again, we've negotiated quite well on there. But yeah, all round, although not the most positive of 3 weeks I've had, it's being resilient and not just accepting what the estate agency world wants to throw at me. I've managed to kind of swim away against the current, and we're doing okay. Mr. Storey.
I'm glad to hear you in a more positive frame of mind, JK, this week, because as we know, it's very much ups and downs, and I feel like we're flying at the minute, but rewind 8 weeks and I felt like I was not flying and that you were. So yeah. It's always the way, isn't it? But no, I mean, for us, things are good. I mean, if we get an interest rate cut this week, and at the end of the summer holidays end in 4 weeks, I feel like we're going to have a storming end to the year because things are going really well currently. We have got a lot on the market, so it's vendor management all day, every day. I'm conscious of people changing agents. I don't think 99% of them will, but I want to make sure that we are keeping vendors happy. So this Monday, on my Monday update, I did a polite lecture on the 3 Ps of why your house hasn't sold: promotion, presentation, and price. I dropped in a 4th P, which is patience.
I like that, mate. I did like that.
You see that?
Yeah, it was very good, very good.
So just thought that,
Ian, do you just want to, obviously, all the members have seen it. Do you want to just quickly explain?
yeah.
Obviously, most people who listen will know the 3Ps, which is great.
Yeah.
So just quickly skirt over them. I really liked what you said about that fourth P that you threw in, because it's very, very, very relevant in this market. So do you want to just explain that?
I was just about to start talking about barn conversions, Dave, and you rudely interrupted me there.
I knew it was coming. Hence where we are now. So if you could crack on with my story, please.
So I'll come back to barn conversions for everyone that's interested. So the 3Ps are promotion, presentation, and price. So there are only ever 3 reasons that your house isn't selling. One of 3 reasons, or all of them, or 2 of them. Promotion, where it's advertised. So is it advertised on Rightmove? Is it on your website? Is it on Facebook and Instagram? Is there a for sale board up? Is it matched out to buyers on your database? So is it advertised in all the right places? Well, with us it is, Mr. Smith. Second P is presentation. What does it look like? Was it styled for the photographs? Does it have a presenter-led video to show the area? Does it have twilight photography? Does it look as good as it possibly can look, in your honest opinion? I believe everything that we sell does. Third P is price. So if the first 2 are right, it's always price eventually. However, I think with your property, Mr. Smith, because although the pound per square foot for 900 grand in the village is right, it does have a lot of accommodation on the ground floor and less upstairs. So it's quite a unique property in that respect. So the 4th P for you, Mr. Smith, is patience. And I think that as soon as we find the right person, it is worth 900 to that right person, because that's what the market data says. But patience has to come into things. And then you add on to that the fact that there's a lot more stuff on the market, and interest rates, and people are waiting for interest rates. So the 4th P of patience is important. And that went down really well. I'm always looking for something to do on our Monday updates to change it up, because every week you're ringing them or you're videoing them and you're saying, well, we're doing all we can. And I'm trying to add context and value to them each week just to keep them engaged. So that went down very well. And then obviously if the interest rates do drop today, even if they don't drop, we'll report that to them as well and what that means for them and the market. But no, in terms of things are going really well for us currently. I'm sure there'll be a turning point around the corner. I was just been looking back on our chat, and we've had so far 3 listings this week, 2 barn conversions, one at 650, one at 1.35, both at 2%. And Phil got a really nice cottage on a golf course at 700 grand, also on full fees.
Nice.
And then I've also been looking back at the sales, and last week we ended sales. We sold one at 865, one at 1.25, one at 685, one at 470, one at 512, one at 395, and one at 672. And I got a really good listing at the weekend at 1.5. So, things do feel really good. We've got about 800 grand of listed fees on the board, and we've got pipeline north of 600.
So that's big.
Things feel really good. Do
you think, just a quick question on the pipeline story, do you think that pipeline is symptomatic of how long things are taking? Do you think that's beefing it up?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. When I looked back at last year, it feels to me like quite a similar pattern to last year. We had a quieter first 6 months, although this week I've actually sat the team down because we are halfway to our target for the year.
Nice.
At which point their bonus kicks in.
Brilliant.
And I realised it was the end of July, not the end of June, so we're just over the halfway point. But the back half of the year looks way healthier than the front half of the year. So the pipeline looks very, very good. Unless something catastrophic happens, I think 80% of it will come in.
Can I just say one thing I think we should talk about on the pod this week as well, just throwing it out there, is cash flow. Because cash flow is something that is being talked about by a lot of people everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just think it's something that we could definitely help with and add value with, and just talk about on the pod as well. But before we do, Mr. Warburton, how has your week been?
Yeah, all right. I'll be honest, the month hasn't felt great. It's weird. I was saying this obviously before we came on. It doesn't feel like it's been an amazing month. It's been a bit quieter, which, to be honest, was welcomed because I've had such a backlog with the bad weather, and we had loads of instructions all come at once. So there's a good opportunity to be more office-based, catch up, things like that. But then when I look at actually what we've achieved this month, there's been a couple of challenges, and I've spoke about them recently on the pod, but we've done 9 new instructions and 9 sales, all at healthy numbers. So it's not been a bad month at all. Exchanges are a bit lighter than I would have liked. You just mentioned the conveyancing process there taking an age. So that's affecting things, of course, and it leads into cash flow and trying to predict where you're going to be and delaying all that side of things. But overall, it's pretty good. It's pretty steady, and I think if I was in this position 3 years ago, just on my Resi brand, my lower brand, it'd be a problem. But when you're targeting mid to high end stock and you're getting more established in that area and you get constantly getting a good churn of listings, it doesn't take a lot to transform your fortunes. So your bad months become actually like this month would be a record month like 3 years ago for us, and it's been a really bang average month. Do you know what I mean? So getting in that mid to higher end space, I think, is critical to enjoy these times.
This is so true. Our cash flow really dipped last month. So what sort of value would you say you've had so far from the Complete Agent, and what sort of value have you had from today?
The letters are just phenomenal. They are absolutely amazing. We are starting to get valuation after valuation, but as you say, the first 2 or 3 times I sent the letters, probably not a lot, but it's that persisting with it, making sure you're doing, and we covered it today with the Complete Agent. There was so much stuff to take away. Unbelievable. The 16-point plan, I love that. I can't wait to implement that. Obviously, I'm using Dataloft.
Yeah,
I love that. That's a game changer for me.
Yeah. This is so true. Our cash flow really dipped last month. Quite low, really. I mean, like sort of worryingly low, really. Worrying to the point where I rang Barclays and said, what would it take to put an overdraft in place? We haven't had to do that, thankfully. But you're right that it turns so quickly. We've had a run of 4 completions, and now it feels fine again, just off 4 sales. It does turn quickly, but you do have to hold your nerve sometimes. But like you say, being in that space with those fees.
And I think as well, Ian, you've just mentioned patience for vendors. I think estate agents have to have patience sometimes as well, and plan. And this is obviously what we're going to talk a bit about this as well today again, because it's the consistent things that we need to constantly be talking about in estate agency. But looking after your clients, because at some point it will come good, and you're going to need good stock levels. What you don't want is to have hardly any stock when the good times are rolling, and just be chasing your tail. So,
Dave,
just
mention that before you move on, talking about vendors and keeping vendors happy. One thing that happened this week, we have a property on at 1.6 that the vendor and I were umming about 1.5 or 1.6. We were on for 1.6 because it's really, the plot is amazing, the view's amazing. Anyway, it hasn't sold. So I've been keeping in touch with the vendor every week, and she seems like she's been impressed. And I spoke to her this week. He said, "Look, I think what we're going to do is just take it off and then try again in the new year." I said, "Okay, that's fine." I said, "But would you mind if we just leave it on for 6 weeks? Because I think if interest rates drop and we get back to school holidays, you never know." I said to them, or you could drop it. I didn't say drop it. I said, or you could change it to officer for 1.5. And I think that would bring in new interest. And she's like, "Look, that's okay. We're not in a matter of his mum's just passed away, sadly. A few things have happened to them." And I said, "Look, Joyce, all I want to make sure is that you don't change agents. I want to make sure that I sell it for you when the time comes." She said, "Ian, I would never go anywhere else." And do you know what she said? She said, "I've seen what you've done on social media. I've seen how hard you've worked above and beyond Rightmove on social media. And we've done a live there. We've done loads of posts about it and stuff. So I think by doing all that extra stuff, it really helps to retain clients and see what you're doing. And they can't argue with it then."
No, 100%. It's true, and that's the story of your week at the moment. Like I've done lots of seller reviews this week. I've done. I did a quite in-depth Zoom call with someone yesterday. So that's a tip that I'd give anybody. Like, don't just ignore people. Don't just drop messages. Get Zoom calls are so useful. Really, I mean, I had a lady on the phone on a Zoom yesterday. I was sharing my screen, so I was showing her all my Dataloft data. I was showing her the Rightmove Plus reports. I was showing her what's in the market right now. I was showing her some valuations that I'd been to. I've been to a valuation a couple of weeks ago. The guy's, it's the classic: takes all your advice and then reduces with his existing agent. Showing her that and saying, but for him, his reason is he's going to Australia. He desperately needs to sell. His drop's quite hefty. so you might not need to go that far, but you might want to be patient. You've got the luxury of time a little bit, Ali. You don't need to move right now, and we might get a base rate drop today, or in the coming weeks, and I think that will be a great time to potentially have a price realignment to sort of reinvigorate energy into your listing. It's that the whites of your eyes as well, and being able to demonstrate what you're doing. Rather than, I've picked up 2 listings this week that are on with other agents. They've been on with other agents for ages, and they're just not telling them what's happening in the marketplace. They're just letting them sit.
Yeah,
they're not telling them anything.
No,
and they're actually saying to me, they're actually saying they've done nothing. That agent, they've done absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and that won't be true.
No.
They're just not communicating with them.
Yeah, the perception is they're not doing anything. One of the ones I've just picked up off another agent, which is a barn conversion. Came on at £1 million. Data says it's 914 on the pound per square foot, so it's too much money. They dropped it to 965, so damaging. Had a conversation with the seller yesterday, sent him the data loft stuff. He understands it needs to be offers over 9. He's going to give notice to them and come on with us. My point is, they said to him that they would put it on Facebook, and they haven't done. And they haven't posted on Facebook for 9 months.
Sorry about that as well.
And you think, there's no excuses there. There's just no excuses. No. I have no negative feelings about taking that property off another agent whatsoever because they've done nothing.
Yeah, this is it. They just want to know what's happening. The 2 I've been to this week, they're both considerably overpriced. And I've also been to a probate one this week, which I'm always wary because, the solicitor's handling it, and they'll pretty much just give it to the person that's got a couple of sale boards on the street. Mm-hmm. So I went, did it, I've done my report, I've sent it back to the solicitor. I need to respond to him today, but he's actually responded overnight to me to say, "Hi Dave, I've got your report. Your valuation of the property is around £50,000 lower than the other 2. Could you give me a bit of feedback, please?" And I have done that fully in the report. He's obviously clearly not read it all. So I've reverted him back to the report, and what I've added is, I promise you, the other 2 agents have overvalued you to try and get your business, and they will just chop. Nothing on the street is sold at this level. We're in a declining market in this area. And it's like, what are they doing? Why are they telling them that? I met the family, the solicitor's handling it, but I've met the family who are handling it on the behalf of their late sister. And they just want it gone. And all that's going to happen now is it's going to sit there for months, and then it'll just get reduced, which will water down the effect. It's a bungalow that needs a full refurb, and you're just thinking, there's a certain target market for it, but they're just bullshitting clients, and there's so much of it going on. It frustrates the hell out of me because I said it quite passionately on the podcast the other week. They're not just messing around with property prices in their own business and trying to get numbers on. They're playing with people's lives. And I was sort of saying to these guys, what's your motivation? Well, we want it gone. And I've not priced it competitively to get it gone. I've priced it at market value. And I'm sort of saying you've got to sort of start thinking now. I know we're in July and the sun's out finally, but if you've got an empty property here, what's going to happen when you're in Ireland and this is sat empty and the winter months start kicking in? There's going to be a bit more maintenance. You've got the risk of burst pipes and all that sort of stuff. Do you really want to be going through winter and having this property empty? Only you can answer that. Again, getting into the why and the details. If they're turning around to me and saying, we really want to test the market because we've got some homes, some bills to pay, maybe to the old people's home, whatever it is, the care home. It's the old people's home. Do you call it old people's home? You must do, Story. You're from Blackpool.
Retirement home.
Old people's home, retirement home, care home. We're probably a bit backward. Yeah, but it's old people in homes. But you've got bills to pay. They might need to pay them off, that kind of thing. So again, it's just getting into the why. And they clearly want to get it gone. It's an empty property that needs a load of work, and we've got agents overvaluing it by 50 grand. And he's thinking, what are you doing? It really frustrates me. Anyway, going back to my week, lads. Just finishing off.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear enough about
that. So the overall picture I just wanted to paint was, it didn't feel like it was an amazing month. It's been a bit quieter, which I think a lot of people are feeling. But because of the space that we're operating in, it's actually, if we look at the numbers, it's not been bad at all. And a lot of that will filter through to the end of the year. I'm doing a lot of seller contact at the moment, which, I think everybody needs to be doing, manning up and doing the seller contact, telling the truth, being honest. Been to quite a few valuations. I went to a Big Daddy last week, which is an absolute beauty. And he is a developer who is just an amazing contact. and his wife is also in PR and works with quite a lot of well-known people. So, and she was dead impressed with what we did on the day with all the setup and stuff like that. So that went really well. I'm really excited to work with him and her. So overall, it's been okay, but I felt a little bit flat. I'll be honest. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a few things going on that are outside of your control, and it's just got to, try going again, don't you? But it happens to us all.
You've got to be resilient. And just one thing I was going to say is interesting about what you said, Story, a second ago. Should we just jump into this week's pod then? So we're going to talk about
after 20 minutes.
Yeah. Talk about cash flow. We're going to talk about the opportunity that's in the market in terms of the stock that's already on the market. And I think just general kind of resilience. I think more than anything else, I think it's a really good one to cap off. But just going back to on-market properties, and someone you said a minute ago, Story, the house you went to, literally the house I went to yesterday, it's on at 825, crap price, been on the market with 2 agents, and it's just been severely undermarketed. The data actually said the house is higher, but it's not, because there's a couple of compromises. So like there's a lack of garage, and the way that the plot's positioned. But what I found really interesting was the agent said, because she said, look, you know nothing, you're not updating me. Classic, agent's 3 controllables: quality of marketing, exposure, and the communication. And the quality of the marketing is very average, no video. The photos were taken back in March when the trees were all bare and the garden was all bare. The front looks like it's taken in winter. There's no video, obviously. There's no drone or elevated shots. Anyway, she said to them, look, I see all of these things on social media from James Kendall about all the properties they're putting on and all the videos. I want you to put something on social media for my house. I'd like to do a video. They're like, oh, no, we don't do videos for houses that are less than $1 million. And they don't do videos if they can get away with it. It's nothing to do with it, we've been less than $1 million or not. And anyway, and then he then said, oh yeah, we don't put houses on social media that are less than $1 million too. And I said to her, that's really weird. I said, because it's one that they've just put on at like 700,000 on Rightmove. If you go on their Instagram, look, this is it on Instagram at 750. And she was like, what? And I was like, look, let's forget about that now. Let's just give them notice and let's get you signed up and let's get you moved. I said, we need to change the price by 25 grand and go offers over 8. It's going to be £500 up front. This is what we charge. She says it's a bit more than, obviously, well, it's a lot more than she's been charged. She's been charged 1% at the moment, and she's not even getting 1% service. But again, it's just a classic case of a house being undermarketed and zero comms.
JK, you were talking before about resilience, weren't you? And I think that that's what I seem to be doing every minute of every day, every week currently. While we've got an amazing pipeline and we've got an amazing amount of listed fees on the board, as it were, the management of people and the management of buyers is difficult to do. I've got a guy at the minute who put a house on the market at $1 million, won't pay more than $1 million for it. I've sent him the pound per square foot data. It's cheap. I mean, it's cheap at $1 million. It does need a bit of modernising, but it is cheap at $1 million. He won't have it. I'm going back and two with him. He keeps telling me he's a property investor, so he doesn't pay. He never pays asking price for anything. So I'm lucky that he's offered that. Like, right. I said, well, I have buy-to-lets too, Mr. Smith, and I understand what you mean if I was buying a buy-to-let, but this is not a buy-to-let. This is a large family home. So I do think it's different. And I've been talking to him about how house prices will rise when interest rates fall and all this sort of stuff. But sometimes you just feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, let's just on that. Do you want to? Should we have a quick chat about what we are saying to clients at the moment? Because we're saying keep in touch. I think one of the biggest problems that people have is, what do I say?
Yeah.
Right? And to me, it's easy. You tell the truth.
Yeah.
But although
if you set it up correctly from the start.
It is. You're right.
I've only started using Dataloft. We've only started using Dataloft very recently. And on those ones, it's easy because it's not your opinion. The price isn't your opinion. So as long as the marketing's amazing and the promotion's correct, then the price is nothing to do with you, is it? It's the market.
That's how you've got to. But so let's assume then.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing on that as well? Just the Dataloft aside, the one I went to yesterday, she said, "So what's your valuation?"
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to give you a valuation. I said it's not, agents don't value your house, the market values your house. And I was like, my job is to set a marketing price within the scope of where it needs to be in order to get people to come through the door and negotiate you the highest possible price for your house.
Yeah.
And I said, you could invite 3 other agents around your house. And, I think I got this from you, Dave. You have 3 other agents. Yeah, we'll give you 3 other opinions. And it's just an opinion, and it's all about getting the marketing price right. So that's all I was going to say, is just to back that back to you. If a seller says to you, well, what's your valuation?
Yeah.
You can push back with that.
I went to a Val last night, and she'd had a list of 7 or 8 questions written down before I got there. I saw them on the coffee table when I walked in. I managed to get a little glance as I was walking around, so I could prep my answers. So I thought one of them was, how do you value a house? And I thought, now that I use Dataloft, I'm so pleased she's asked that question, because I displayed it all to her. I showed her the graphs, I showed her the price rises, I showed her the pound per square foot data, I showed her the CSV file of properties locally and what the average price was of those. Easy. Frankly, it's easy. That's 9 properties out of 10. There's always the odd one that doesn't quite fit, as we talked about yesterday, didn't we, on WhatsApp, but most of them fit the data. And I think it's easy now. I think to price stuff, generally speaking, is easy.
I think mate, when you master it, it's liberating. When you go to a valuation, there's an experience value. Yeah. I mean, I've used data for years, and you obviously are always perfecting your craft. But there's no, I wouldn't say there's no skill to it. There is, of course, there is. You've got to learn how to deliver it. But it is liberating knowing that when you go into that valuation, you get the nod of the head, the light bulb moment that goes off in that vendor's head when you explain to them that you are not there to value their home. And it's just like, they just get it. I'm not here to value your home because I'm not buying it and neither are you. You're selling it and hopefully I'll be selling it for you. So we're here to try and get you the best possible price. What we need to understand is where your home sits in the market, and then put a marketing campaign together for the target market that is going to buy your home. We don't want to just advertise your market, advertise your property. Again, the old Tom Panos saying from a few weeks ago, you need to be in the market, not just on the market. And we need to find who is going to buy it. You're no longer selling your home, you're selling your buyer's next home. Let's present the home, how your next buyer is going to live in it, and let's go all out to get the best possible price for it. How does that sound? And it's like, it makes total sense. Right, well, what is that number? Yes. Right, well, let's go through the data.
I've really found recently, I mean, I was about to say that I think maybe I've got a bit lucky because of I'm with speaking to the right sort of clients, but maybe it's not luck. I've really found that by referring to the data and going through the data, the clients agreed with me. Like it's kind of been what they were thinking, and many of the ones that I've been to. And you can't really argue with it because it's worth roughly what it's worth, isn't it? The right agent can get you 30 grand more than the other agent, but generally it's worth kind of what it's worth. The other thing I was going to say was, as well as using Dataloft, so doing the prep beforehand, so we're asking much more detailed questions now. So, for example, I'm going to a Val in a couple of weeks. It's a 3-bed, 30s detached house on a nice big plot. And she only bought it something like 7 years ago. So I said, have you done anything to it? Yes, I've extended it. Oh, can you tell me where you've extended it? Yes, I've done a full width extension across the back. Great. Do you know what size that extension was? Yes, it was 15 metres by... Brilliant. I'm just trying to work out the exact square footage before I come and see. So then I can plot, and I know the square footage. So I know what it's worth before I walk in the door. Then what I then do is I go to Rightmove Plus and I work it out another way to try and arrive at the same kind of figure. So I'll say, this is what the Dataloft data says. This is land registry recorded sale data. So the prices you see on Rightmove, Mr. Smith, they probably won't get what they're on the market for, but this is land registry recorded data. And then on Rightmove Plus, I look at ones that are sold STC and I work out a different way to get to the same valuation range by looking at stuff that's on the market now. And then you've got 2 ways of getting to the same kind of range.
Yeah.
And you present that to them. And, well, it's just... I really feel valuations are much, much easier than they've ever been.
Of course, yeah. And it's not... Do you know what? It doesn't matter as well necessarily if it's slightly out. Because I always say... I've had one this week on that big boy I went to, so it's 8,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, he told me he thought it was 6,500. So you can imagine the differential that might have been there. So you go into something like that, And you go, it's a very subjective thing because it's a huge house, this. And you've got quite a bit of land at the back, but we know that you are going to be building on the back of it. So again, it's got to be the right type of person that wants to buy this house. So it could be around 1.5 million, this. Anyway, he was like, yeah, totally get it. So we'll know more once we get the floor plan back and we decide, what the target market's going to be. That's how the conversation went. We're talking about a developer here who builds big, he builds thousands of apartments every year in Manchester city centre. He's got his own absolute beautiful house that he's now selling, and I've managed to get in with him, which is great. But anyway, the floor plan came back the other day and he's like, oh my God, it's miles bigger than I thought. It's close to 8,000 square feet. I said, I know. That we probably might have to adjust things, but let's talk about it. So you're talking about somebody who's so experienced, and we've taken the conversation away from valuation and about how am I going to get this sold for you? Let's look at my expertise in how we market here. And you can do it. It works at all ends of the market. It does, because obviously I've got the Resi brand. I was with someone this week who is on the market at 350,000 and has been for the best part of 9 months. The house is overpriced by £50,000, which is huge on a house value of that size. So when I told her that, she gave it the old broth burners. Ooh, broth burners? No, you taste the broth and you burn your lips.
Broth.
Nice,
broth. There you go.
I'm going to say, are you going to go out with your club in a minute as well?
There you go. So she was shocked at it, but then when you explain it, it hits home straight away. It hits home, and that light bulb goes off.
Yes, and on this topic, there's two things that have just come to mind that I've written down. Yesterday, the data for this particular house, the data said 816. I think it was 816. That was the average pound per square foot on the square footage.
Say that again, Ian.
The data said 816.
What, 816,000 or £816 a foot?
£816,000. We're not in Chelsea.
Central London, I'm going to say. Yeah.
So that's what the data said. It was 816 grand. Okay. They paid something like 650 for it 4 or 5 years ago. So the increase in the market's been about 20%. So that came in just under 800. So it was all pointing to offers over 800. The other agent had said 750. I wouldn't put it on for any more than offers over 750. So we are higher. But I'm confident that that's the right price. And if it's not my opinion. The data. So I've put that in the proposal. This is what the data says. So if we get 6 weeks in and it's not gone and we know it's the price, well, then we just go back and we say, well, the data did say that, but that was the data's opinion. Yeah. Not mine.
I'm not telling you it's worth that. The market's telling you it's worth that.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll get more.
The other thing was pre-list packs. I know we've spoken about pre-list packs, but the one I got to yesterday, she'd read the marketing plan. She sat down on the coffee table and she'd read the whole marketing plan before I got there and picked me up on loads of questions on it all the way through. She had it prepared. So sending out a pre-list pack with your marketing plan in and then presenting the data like that is gold, absolute gold.
It is. And I think this is the sort of stuff now that you need to be saying to your clients. You've got to get them on the phone. I think, like I said, I don't know whether you nipped off before, JK, but we're talking about, I did a really detailed Zoom call this week with a client who needs a bit more. She's very articulate. She knows what she's doing. She takes lots of notes, and she really values that. And if you just give her a phone call saying, "Oh, yeah, I think you need to reduce price," or she'd just be like, "I'm going somewhere else." She wants the detail. She wants to understand where she's at. So I was able to screen share like the data loft stuff, and screen share Rightmove Plus, and screen share the number of hits she's been getting on YouTube to show her a video, show her the social media content we've been doing for her. So she knows she's being well looked after. And a house has been on the market for 3 months, and it's top end of the market, but that was her number, not ours. The market suggested slightly lower. And now she can see, we shared the trends, and what we could see was that the trends in her exact postcode area are dropping slightly. They've dropped for the last 3 months. And I was able to say to her, when I came to see you originally, we were actually in a very, very slight period of ascendancy. But now, after 3 months of marketing, we can see that your area is dropping. So what you want to be careful of is that you don't wait too long to adjust your price, because if that trend continues, you'll probably lose more value off your house. So you've now got to decide what you want more. Do you want to wait and get a bit more money, or is it more important that you move on to the next chapter of your life in the house that you want, in the area you want?
This client I mentioned earlier on, where we were 1.5, 1.6, deciding on what price to go at, that's going to take it off and take a little break. They're not in a mad rush to sell at all. They don't need to sell and move. So she's quite happy to take it off and review things and then go back on. And I have explained to her that there's a risk there because the market might it might go up, down, sideways, round in circles, and you don't know what it's going to do. But there is a potential risk there. But equally, she's happy with that because they're not in a rush at all, and she really loves her house currently.
Well, great advice, Ian, though. Great advice. You're just being honest with her.
Yeah, and the other thing to say is that on ones where I wasn't as hot on the data when I first went out and listed it, I am now using the data to revalue it. So it's a little bit tricky on some of them because some people will say, well, you did say this originally. And I'll say, well, I did. And, but I have re-looked. So you just got to, get the data to say what you want it to say. And in an honest way, obviously. But by revaluing it and then presenting them with the data, you can do that even if you didn't do it originally. We did it on one yesterday. I went a couple of years ago, said more. We photographed it all now. I've got it already. I only put it on the market last night. We were thinking 1.1 to 1.2. I've looked at the data. It's a cracking plot, but it isn't any more than $1 million because it needs everything doing to it. So I presented it all to him last night on the phone. And he was like, oh, I can clearly tell you. And then it's clearly not more than $1 million, is it? It must be that sort of level. Brilliant. Crack on. The right sort of client gets it, don't they?
Yeah.
100%. And sometimes you've got to make tough decisions. I had a call last night with somebody where I valued it last week. It's on our Resi brand. It's on at 425. It's a really nice property in a nice cul-de-sac. The market is nowhere near that at the minute. Unfortunately, it's probably around 375. So that's what I told them. It's 375. You've been massively overvalued by a current agent. They've got previous. They've got loads of houses sticking in the area. Look at the data. And she rang me last night. This was like valued at the end of last week. She rang me last night and said, "What's the lowest we can? What's the highest we could go on for with you?" And I said, "Dorothy, that's your number. I want to help you sell. I don't want to tell you something you want to hear. Those are the numbers you've got to work to if you want to make your move. And if the move isn't right, those numbers don't fit right now. You might need to reassess your goals and what you want to do." That was the conversation I had with her last night. She really wants to use us. She loves our marketing. She said, "I like your refreshingly honest approach." I'm like, well, isn't that what we should all be doing?
Yeah.
And I said, ultimately, this is what we need to do: get you sold. So I will not take that listing. So if she comes back to me tomorrow and says, "I want to come on, but can we try it at the 425 we're on?" I'm just going to say, I can't. It's a complete waste of our time and your time. I don't want to tell you something you want to hear. I want to be factual with you. But I do
say on that, Dave, as well. Like that's spot on what you've said. I have, I've been guilty of. So I went to go and see a client yesterday. We've been on the market for 58 days, I think now. And when I first, the data suggested in the beginning 557,000 basically. So I said, look, the best thing to do would be to go on offers over 550, hits a price band, and would again try and maximize the price with a marketing campaign. She said, look, we've had it valued elsewhere at 600. We'd like a minimum of 575. Can we go at offers over 575 in the beginning? Like, I hear what you're saying and I hear what they're saying. I said, well, as you said, 600 is too high. They're just doing it to get you business. And I said, look at the contract length. They're all quoting 3, 4 and 5 month contracts. I said, I'm 14 days. You can get rid of us in 14 days. Not that you'll want to. We'll do everything to keep you. But anyway, I went with it at 575 and it just killed it. It killed it. Anyway, we've changed it to offers over 550 and we've had more viewings now. But I just feel like it's difficult, isn't it, sometimes? Because sometimes you can end up walking away full stop and losing the business and somebody else will manage it down and then sell it.
Yeah.
But sometimes equally, maybe I should have been even a bit more stronger than I was and said, look, if that money's there, we'll get it at offers over 550. Which is what I did say, and I just feel like now the price has changed. We're on the back foot because we went with their price, not with my advice. But I was very clear about that.
As we're sat here now, I'm thinking I've got this one at the minute where the plot is just exceptional. The views across to a really good golf course, amazing. But the house is like 2,200 square feet. It's not that big, and it needs modernising. So. But I really, really wanted the listing because it's a really desirable village right near to Tarpley. Yeah. It's a great board. I'll probably get 3 boards up because of the road it's on. And she only wants to use us. But and I was taking it on, saying to her, we'll try and get some off-market buyers in to test the higher price. But I think we're probably 200 grand apart on the price.
We've got one of those as well, though. We've got a couple of those. Sorry, Dave. I'm going to say we've got 2 or 3 of those. And I just think, the thing is I think it's a different scenario. I mean, as long as they understand what you're saying and where you're at, I don't think it can do you any harm to have those listings on your site because, to quote Dave, because there's so much liquidity at the top end, some of the houses that we've got, at 1.5, 1.7, like stuff we've had at just over 2, like the data hasn't truly matched up with the house because there is so much subjectivity with that part that, it may not sell in a week or 2 weeks or 6 weeks or 60 days, whatever the average is where we are. But someone might come along. But also equally, going back to what we talk about in the mini-series, having it on there, the marketing's paid for majority by the client. It's something that's sitting there ready to go. The client obviously wants to move and, you might get a buyer coming along. But when you send the market updates and people check out your website and they see the quality of the listings that you've got online.
Yeah, mate. It's so true.
It benefits you.
I agree. You are right there. We've got one at the minute in the 2 mills, and it's got. We had a couple of viewings. I had an offer. We've got another viewing happening this month, so it has got some interest. But by having stuff on at that level, even if you don't sell it, it stretches your average price that you cover, doesn't it? So you then get a lot more people at 1.5 to 1.7 using you. Whereas the most expensive house you've got on your site is 1.4. It's hard. Well, it's impossible in many ways to stretch. Do you know what I mean? You don't look like you cover.
But it's like that mid-market, though. When you've got houses at 1-2 million, and then you go out to what you call the gold story at like 500 to $1 million, like when you go out to one of those houses, without trying to sound pretentious, that you're at a psychological advantage where they're looking up at you because you sell houses 3, 4, 5 times their value. I play football with a group of lads on Tuesday, all from various different walks of life. Some have got £1 million houses, some have got £300-400 houses. And one of the lads the lad that actually runs the football came up to me and says, "Kendall, do you sell anything under 7 figures?" He goes, "I looked at your website and it couldn't get past £1 million on the first page." And I was like, I do. But I just thought, what a great thing to say in front of everyone.
Brand positioning.
It just goes to show that, your brand position, as you just said there, is in the right position.
Over the years, though, we're now very well established, really, even though we've only been going 5 years. We're now very well established, so we do cover the whole market well. But a few times over the years, I've had that same comment said to me, and it's worried me a bit, really, because I think people maybe at 500, 600 don't use us because they think we only sell. So positioning yourself for them to stretch the brand takes time.
I've got a little story about this guy that I've told you about today. So the house that I've won, and he's an amazing contact, like I say, this week. I'm so happy about doing this, and I really want to do a great job. So we've been connected for years, and he's been doing lots of developments in the city centre and things like that probably wouldn't be my bag anyway, and a lot of them sell off plan to overseas investors. They do that type of thing. But occasionally he's built luxury sites, development sites. And when I say luxury, anything sort of from like 700,000 up to maybe 1.5 million over the last sort of 10 years. He'll do the odd build. Never contacted me, never. He'd seen stuff that we were doing on our mid-range brand, our Resi brand, and stuff that we were selling. And he's never reached out to me on that. And we have sort of connected a few times and chatted. Anyway, obviously, fast forward, and we've been doing Burton James now for a few years. He reached out to me. He didn't ask me to come and give an opinion. He said, "I'm selling my house and I want you to sell it for me." I hadn't even valued it. Yeah. And then he said, "I also want to talk to you about the build that I'm doing behind the house. I'm building 13 houses. They're probably all going to be £1 million each. I want to talk to you about doing some off-market stuff for that as well. Do you fancy having a meeting?" I was like, "Well, of course I do." So I went and met them. We've done all the take-on this week, and it was it's probably the toughest one we've done. There's so much going on at the house. It was chaos, but it was great. Really good experience. And his probably careful about too much. I don't want to say too much, just in case somebody's listening. But somebody else has valued the house. Somebody else has valued it. Someone that they know. They actually know the person quite well, and they'd given a valuation that they didn't feel supported the house anyway. But they didn't want to use them because they don't sell anything like that at all. Mm-hmm. They only sell the mid-range stuff, and they wanted them to just. They kind of just had the appointment because they felt like they had to. So I think the point I'm trying to make is it's so important that if you are listening to this later on for the first time, lots of people finding the podcast later on, I think, and you're looking to get into that mid to higher end space, I would really encourage anyone listening to go back to that mini-series from the start in particular and think about how you set up and how you look. Because if you get to a position where your website is uniformed and all it is mid to higher end homes presented in exactly the same way every time, and you're doing your social media and stuff like that, you might not be getting all the likes and shares you think, but I promise you're getting noticed. I've seen it so much over the last 6-12 months, so much. And just this last sort of couple of months, I've made some amazing contacts, developers who want to work with us now and in the future. So I think it's really, really important point that you were making before, JK, and as long as you get them back to your website and everything looks right, because they will check you out before they ring you, obviously.
Yeah.
Goes back to when
this guy I'm going to later has done exactly that. Got an on the market letter. I sent you the voicemail in the TCA members group. The guy basically said, I'm on the market, I've got your letter through the door. I'm on the market with this other agent. Seem like really nice guys, but they're not very progressive at moving my house forward. Give me a call and we'll see if you are what you say you are. And
I like that.
I had a good chat with him on the phone yesterday. Really straight talking guy, super motivated, ready to drop the price of his house. I said, look, I don't necessarily think you have to do that. Looking at what I can see online, I think you're under marketed, and I think the biggest superpower of where your house is, sir, is where it is. And I said on the advert, apart from the address, no one knows that. There's no drone, there's no video, there's no sale of the area. And I said that, I think, the marketing and a new strategy is what's going to do. But anyway, I'm going to see him today. He just pushed back his appointment, but he definitely wants to do it today. And that will be a great instruction at 900 grand, 2%. And he's super motivated. He goes, look, I want to be moved by Christmas. So just come out, tell me what I need to do. Before we cap off the pod today, lads, we're going to talk about cash flow. And a lot of people that I'm speaking to in and out of TCA. And we did mention, obviously, about cash flow dipping. But one of the things we can help with in TCA is helping people get upfront marketing fees. And that is huge for cash flow. I mean, for me, it's been transformative for my business in recent times, mm-hmm. where our cash flow has dipped massively again. Mm-hmm. But in the last month, we've taken £9,500 in upfront marketing fees.
Yeah.
VAT exclusive. So £9.5 grand plus VAT. So normally where I'd get photographer and copywriting and brochure bill at the end of the month for the best part of £8 grand, that's covered.
Yeah.
And if I'm speaking to people that are just setting up on their own now and moving out into the world and saying, don't really want to spend the money on TCA, haven't got the money to spend, going to pump that money into direct mail. I'm like, well, if you've got £500 to spend a month, putting that into direct mail, in my opinion, is the best thing you can do. But equally, you can waste all of your money by doing that if you're not doing what you need to do. We're not selling new ideas. We're selling what works. Mm-hmm. Stories send these out every quarter. Bert and James send these out every quarter. Us at James Kendall send them out every quarter. And it has just been transformative to our business. We know what we're talking about. We know what we're writing and we know what works. So what you can do is spend your money on the membership, obviously. But we'll help you get to a place where you can command upfront marketing fees, get your first few instructions. That will pay for your membership. And then you can start spending that extra money on your direct mail, on your marketing. And I just think, for me, as someone that's established in the mid to high end, taking upfront fees for cash flow is game changing.
I agree. And as we started off the episode, we were talking about our pipelines and our listed fees on a board and stuff. And I really think that's something I can help members with. You know, the listed fees that we have now are huge. The pipeline is huge. We basically have one office.
Ian, I want to give you a bit of a pat on the back here. I think you should tell people, if you're comfortable with it, what your on-market fees are, because my view at the moment is that if you are holding stock, protect it with your life.
Yeah.
Make sure you do incredible seller reviews and regular seller reviews, because if we get an interest rate drop today or in the next month or coming months, I think we all know that will kickstart and add energy to the market. It's not good. In reality, this is what I'm telling vendors at the moment, just to backtrack a little bit, but vendors, I'm telling them that we don't know what will happen, but if we get an interest rate drop, it will add energy into the market. In reality, it won't make a lot of difference to people's repayments.
No.
But
it will the state of mind, though, won't it?
The state of mind, that psychological effect.
Yeah.
So it's likely to kickstart the market a little bit more, and that's when you probably want to take some action if you've not done already. So if you're holding stock and you're regularly servicing these clients, then we get these 1 or 2 rate drops because stock levels are at an 8-year high. The government won't want that. Bank of England won't want that. Properties need to get moving. Then if you're holding good stock, then the good times will roll. We're well positioned for that. We've got loads of stock coming on and stock on. Ian, you're in an incredible position. Go on, I want you to share it with us if you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, well, I've already said it earlier on in the pod, Dave. We were recording when I said it. Yeah, so listed fees not yet sold is around 800,000.
That's amazing.
And pipeline is something like 650.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And of course, we've got diaries full of valuations. Like, you can't get a valuation with us for 2-3 weeks unless it's amazing, and I can juggle the diary. So no, I mean, it's good. Yeah, you know, cash flow has been tricky though the last month, but it's picking up again now. But yeah, certainly pipeline and listed fees are really good. Yeah, and that's from one office. And I think the important thing is that people look at us and think we only sell fancy high-end houses, and that is not true. Our average price that we sell at is less than $1 million. Not more than $1 million. It's less than $1 million. So the bulk of what we sell is 500 to $1 million.
I've just had a quick thought. I'm sorry to backtrack, just going back to seller reviews and stuff, but I think it's so important because I do think that, you know, I go out again to a lot of properties that are on the market with other agents, and that the feedback is that we've just not heard from them. And sometimes, you know, they're not doing anything, which isn't. We know it's harsh. That a lot of people aren't. They just list them, but a lot of people aren't. They're working in the background. But you know, if you're struggling for things to tell people, you know, like we've said many times before, it might just be sharing an article. It might just be ringing them up and checking in and just saying, this is what's happening, your right move stats, we've put you on social again this week, we've changed some photos around, whatever it is. But another thing that you can use is, again, these are the light bulb moments that I talk about where vendors sort of get it straight away in an instant. We've obviously talked about it's not me valuing the property, it's the market. That's one. It's, you know, no longer selling your home, you're selling your buyer's next home. That's another. There's, you know, your agent can control 3 things. All these light bulb moments, you need to learn the lingo and make sure that they understand it. But one thing that I think has been really good, and to me it seems obvious, but I don't think everybody does it, is talking about how the mortgage rates have affected buyers. So historically, for the majority of our clients, particularly in the mid to higher end space who are a bit older, 5.25% of base rate of interest is not a lot. You know, it's lower than the 50-year average. So it's not a lot, that. And actually, those types of base rates of interest are quite healthy for savings, healthy for the economy, things like that. However, in recent history, it's a real struggle. You know, we've not had interest rates like this for 15 years. So it's a real struggle for people to have that jump. And when I explained it to someone this week, saying, like, 3 years ago, when the market was incredible and everything was selling, you could just put a board up outside your house, and the interest rates were 0.1%. There was no stamp duty. We had furlough schemes, and people weren't going on holiday and couldn't travel and all that sort of stuff. Your average person, certainly in the mid-range space, was moving from maybe a 2-bed terrace or a 3-bed semi, doubling the value of the home and not increasing the repayments. In fact, in some instances, they might have even been coming down and they were living in much bigger houses. But it was artificial. Now we're in a situation where we're at 5.25%. So if you give them an example and sort of say, let's have a look at your home, Mr. Vendor. If your home is worth, say, £600,000, and that person is fortunate enough to have a 20% deposit, which is a lot, 120 grand, they need a mortgage of 480,000. 3 years ago, that would have probably been about £1,000 a month. Now, it's £3,500 a month. And it's that light bulb moment, and they go, right. So, and then you've got to think about what's the average wage in that area. That's another one I did the other day. The average first-time buyer wage in this area is like £19,000. So the knock-on effect of that might be, okay, we've got a couple of young professionals living in this house, and they've both got a combined salary of £60,000, £70,000. It's not enough to buy a £500,000, £600,000 house. That's why your house is not selling. This is why it's a bit more of a struggle at the moment. Do you get it? Do you understand? It's like, yeah, I totally get it. So you either need to take action or, like you said right at the start of the pod, Ian, be patient. The things might change when the interest rates drop, that psychological edge, etc. But you must get this across to your vendors. You've got to think about what you need to say.
This is all true. And as I said at the start of the pod, I always try and think of something new to say to the clients each week. But also, what we do quite often, and what me and Phil call it, is a no news call. So we'll say, I've done a no news call on Acacia Avenue. And I literally call them and say, John, we are doing all we can, but I haven't got anything else to tell you. But all I can tell you is we're doing all we can. And please be prepared. And because they appreciate the honesty, because as we know, a lot of agents aren't honest about, they make too many promises, and we try not to do that. So as long as you just honest with people, but the key thing is contact every week. You have to make contact with them, and you have to go out of your way to make contact with them, not leave it the other way around, because that's when it starts to slip. Yeah,
agreed. Talk about the trends as well. Last one. Sorry, JK, I think you need to go. Talk about the trends. I know we'll talk about pound per square foot, and we're big on market data, and it's really, really important. But of course, as we all know, land registry is 2 and 3 months behind, and that's reflective of sales that might have happened 3 to 6 months before that. So yes, of course, you want to report what's been happening, but equally look at your Rightmove and Zoopla reports, find out what's happening in the market right now, tell them that, and then articulate it into how that helps or doesn't help them. Be honest. Give them solutions.
Cool. That's us for another week then.
Well, hopefully you'll have to have your haircut, JK.
I actually am off to go and get my haircut now. Yeah,
I've got a haircut today. My barnet is disgusting.
It's graceful.
My fringe is going like yours, JK. It's like
you have got the hairline for your fringe to go like mine.
What are you trying to say?
You look like Don King, and he's cleaner.
Yeah. I look like Don King. Dave looks like he's advertising McDonald's. I'm eating it.
Yours is so big, I don't think a horse could jump it.
What's that, your nose?
Hey!
Anyway.
No.
So, thank you for joining this really mature podcast. And we will see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Bye. See you next week.